Thank you for invitation and thank you for a nice introduction. So what I thought I should discuss with you and share with you today is just some thoughts around more globally what is going on, how the world community through UN are responding with goals, and how we can kind of transfer those goals into the business sector, and maybe it gives us some additional opportunities going forward. And I will bring forward some examples, some from Norway and some from international activity. So as said, I work in DNV-GL. Any of you know DNV-GL? Okay, very good. Yeah, so we are a 152 years old foundation working within risk management. Today 400 offices in 107 countries. So that's pretty much what we are doing. And I will start on a positive note and with the good news. So despite what you and what we read in media these days that everything is bad, actually for humanity we somehow live in the kick-ass era for humans. So never before basically have we had such a good living conditions globally. If you measure access to water, access to education, access to energy, access to vaccine, and so on and so forth, it has been a tremendous development over the last decades. Not least what is going on in the Far East, not least what is going on in China, where hundreds of millions of people have been lifted out of poverty. So that is a good starting point for us. But it is also so that this tremendous development has come with a cost, a huge cost, mainly a cost to the environment. And so this picture is from Beijing. You have been living and traveling in many of these big cities, and I was actually living in China for 5 years and also 3 years in South Korea. And what we see, of course, in these big cities is the cost of the, how to say, the societal infrastructure we have built. And you can hardly breathe the air, drink the water, and so on and so forth. So given that we will have another 2 billion people joining us over the next 30 years, we will have another 2 billion people into the middle class, it is kind of obvious that we need to look on how we organize ourselves, how we organize our energy system, food system, urban infrastructure, and so on and so forth going forward, in order to make sure that we make systems that are more sustainable in terms of both social and environmental issues than what we have built so far. And in that kind of respect, we have had some very significant global agreements coming in place over the last 2-3 years. So in particular in 2015, I would say we saw a turning point. In September that year, we got the 17 UN sustainability goals, which replaced the 8 development goals or the Millennium Goals installed in year 2000. And we also got the Paris Agreement, which basically means that 193 countries agree to a pathways going forward, where we basically shall decarbonize our societies, and that all of these 193 countries are transparent around their goals. And it is also in the agreement that every 5th year we will kind of revisit the plans and see how we can accelerate the goals. So I think this fact that it is now transparent install a lot of actions in many countries around the world. And as I said, we are in 107 countries, and we see big changes going on now on policy level, from governments, cities, and more into the private sectors as well. So this, I would say, was a turning point, will be a turning point, and we basically have a course now to tackle many of the big issues. And in that sense, the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals articulate the issues we need to solve. So, as you see, these are 17 goals to take out poverty, to fix the food system, to move us to both to give access to those 1.5 billion people who don't have access to energy today, give them access, and then clean the whole energy system. So this is basically the plan we have. One plan, one planet. And I think my main argument for you here today is to look at these 17 goals as innovation platforms. Because we see that the private sector really can address many of these challenges. We see that the most forward-leaning companies already have started to develop their strategies, develop their communication, and develop their product and services to tackle these challenges. And we see that young people are much more interested to understand what they are using their life to. And the more you are able to articulate how you address some of these challenges, I would say the more you will be able to attract the really good people you will need driving your business going forward. So I will encourage all of you to be curious about these 17 goals, to understand which of the goals are closest to your business model, and see how you can do more in order to solve these challenges. So under the 17 goals, it is 169 targets and 230 KPIs. So all of this is broken down to more details. So in DNV-GL, we very much work to assess risk. So when the goals was launched in 2015, we launched a project we call The Future of Spaceship Earth, where we basically looked at the 17 goals. We created a model in order to predict the future. So this is a system dynamic model. So we were able to look into 2030, to look at the population growth, to look at productivity, to look at energy transition, and so on and so forth. So we divided the world in 5 different regions. So US, OECD, China, BRICS, which then is Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, and 10 other emerging economies, and the rest of the world. And then we did an assessment of what is the likelihood of the world meeting the goals. So basically you will see where we have red spots. It's basically, in our opinion, not very likely that we reach the goals. The green spots are spots which basically say that we will reach the goals, and the yellow is then in between. So why did we do this? Well, we did it basically in order to inspire the business sector to do more. So we update this now year by year and work together with a lot of partners in order to, green the scorecard. So this analysis was presented in the UN in September last year, and it will again be represented in September this year, and we are measuring progress towards the goals. So that is also what I will share with you today, that it is plenty of room to address these societal challenges. By introducing these goals, you will also see that it's no longer developing country and developed countries. We are all development countries. We all have something to stretch. It's 2 areas which is red throughout. It's goal number 10 on inequalities. So it's not going in the right direction. Rich people are getting richer. Rich countries are getting richer. So we are not able to address inequalities as we see it today. The order which I read throughout is on climate action. So in our model, we are heading, steadily towards a 3-degree heating scenarios. So that means that we are not able to reach the goals which are laid out by the UN on climate action. The good news about climate is that we know what to do. We have to fix the energy system. We have to move it to a renewable system, and we also have more or less all technologies we need to do it. So that it is possible to do so. It is a lot of good things going on, but the point is that it is not going fast enough at all. When we looked at this analysis, we have also some other kind of good news. So this is how we have modeled the energy future we are into. You see, of course, that we are moving more to a non-fossil energy future. Again, not fast enough, but the right direction. But maybe more interesting is that we see that the total energy usage in the world are about to leverage out. So despite we have an increasing middle class, despite we have more people on Earth, we see that in total these are leveraged out because we see more energy efficiency. And we also see that as the mix of energy is getting more and more electric, the efficiency of the electricity is higher. And again, we are levering out on the energy. This is the same picture you saw, but it's just broken into the different components. And again, you see the big increase now going forward in renewables. These are a more kind of dramatic picture because that shows how the yearly capacity additions are changing. So you see we are now about 50-50 on renewables and fossil every year installed. But going forward, you see a dramatic change to renewable. So in 10 years' time, we will see, according to our prediction, 80-20. 80% of the yearly installment will be on renewable. So if you wonder where the puck is going on energy, I think you should, all of you, look to the renewable sector. That's where things will be moving quickly going forward. Why is that? Basically because of economics. So these are just some cost curves on solar, on onshore wind. You see the same on offshore wind. You see the same on storage. It is dramatic. Nobody who were predicting solar cost compression 3 years ago were able to hit the target. Nobody were able to estimate the rapid cost compression on solar, and it is continuing the next years on technology. So this will just make the economic totally different, and you will see a rapid change on the energy system. And we are talking country by country. We see this is going on now. We see in India plans to develop coal has been stopped just because of economic, just because solar is coming in and it's just so much cheaper. So this is exciting. It is still not enough and it is still not going fast enough, but I think it holds a lot of opportunities. So with this kind of as a backdrop, what are the kind of the opportunities going forward? And I will use a Norwegian perspective on this now, but it is equally, I think, applicable to companies. First and foremost, I think when the world have been able to articulate these 17 goals for 2030, I think each country can do the same. I think each companies can do the same. In DNV-GL, we work with that. We have set out our target for 2020 and 2030. And we use that to drive the whole organization towards one common goals. So we have a vision of global impact for a safe and sustainable future. And we then articulate the safe and sustainable future into the 17 goals. And we pick those goals who are most important for us to drive our innovation process. The second opportunity, I think, is related to the role of business. So what is the role of business? I know it is, who is here from Unilever? Yeah, so Paul Polman, he normally says that, if you cannot tell why you are here, you should not be here. And I think more and more business leaders are thinking like that. And more important, again, young people. When we meet young people these days, in the old days we interviewed them. Today they interview us. They ask, what is the purpose of your business? What are the big problems you are solving? So if you are going to attract the best people, I think you really need to articulate your business more along, solving social challenges. And look at this as innovation platforms, because I think if your business models are well aligned with some of these goals, I think you have a robust model going forward. The whole energy system, as we have touched on, is in totally transitions. And I think many of your companies are partly or fully working into that transition. So again, we will see big changes. We will see more decentralized energy system, and we will see a much more smarter system when the energy system really meet the internet, and you see that you get more smartness into the whole system. And I mean, we have been in the energy business for many years. I think when we now look back, we see that for the last 40 years it has been very stable incremental development within the sector. And we saw a sharp turning point last year where we basically see adoption of 10 different technologies approaching the sector at the same time. Only within solar we see 30 different technologies coming up. We see big development within wind, digitalization, so on and so forth. So that system is not to be recognized 5-10 years going forward. And again, a lot of opportunities, I think, for companies to take part in that journey. So basically, we have this buzzword, the fourth industrial revolution. I think we are into that age now. For Norway, I think it's a lot of opportunities to scale up many of these solutions. Norway is a small country with high trust, and I think we can go in front and we can really lift some of these solutions. We work a lot in the maritime sector. 2 years ago, Norway developed the first electric ferry. Now we have 10 more ferries under development. And we get so many requests from all over the world around that technology. Electric cars is another sector. It's a no-brainer that the global car industry will go electric within the next 10 to 15 years. So I think to be in front of that waves, to really kind of build competence, services, is a huge opportunities. But we also see that really in order to green this scorecard, it's not just about doing what we did yesterday a little bit better. That will not be enough. It is 5,000 days from today to 2030. So we need to think differently. We need to have completely new ideas on the table. And I will just share a few of these ideas which I find exciting these days. So this is a company called Kite Mill. So they are looking on how can they harvest more wind energy much more efficiently. So what they have is these kites. So if you see a conventional windmill today, you will learn that 80% of the energy is basically generated on the 20% of the blades. The rest is just material in order to keep the blades up. So what they are doing is basically to send these kites up from 100 to 1500 meters up, and then they have a wire and a generator, so they generate energy through that. So they are now piloting the solution on Lista, south of Norway, and globally it is 4 or 5 other companies working with this technology. So this is a totally different way of harvesting wind energy. You are harvesting from much higher altitude and with much less material. This is also a Norwegian invention. It's a small electric bicycle. It is not to replace a conventional bicycle, but it is to replace a car. So this is built for Norwegian conditions. So you have heating and you are totally covered. And basically you shall be able to drive in a suit back and forth to your office. It has some autonomy into it. So when you leave the bicycle, it will find its charging station by itself. And it will tilt up like this and do its charging to save space in dense cities. So I mean, it is a lot of these going on these days, and I think these are young entrepreneurs very much. They are looking at the future and to solve future challenges in a different way. I also have to share this picture because this is our own office in Bergen. I mentioned we have 400 offices. So this is the first office we have PV solar on the roof. So for those of you who are familiar with Norway and Bergen, you will understand that if solar is working in Bergen, it will probably be working in all other offices we have globally. And we moved in September, and so far it is working well. So we have now installed a big program to install solar on the other offices as well. And I hope you have talked about your new office here in Porsgrunn, which will be really not about only to reduce your impact, but to contribute. So I think that is also a big movement going on now. It's not longer to limit your footprint. It is to, as a company, see how you can contribute on societal factors, on environmental factors. So I think not so soon down the road, you will see regulation coming in place, forcing buildings to be net positive. They shall contribute with energy to the society and not consume. And this is what we are interested in looking forward. So I will just share a few of the kind of the trends we now see unfolding, which is important for business to understand and to align to. So we talked about all the environmental stresses, the fact that the Earth Overshoot Day, the day where we have used our resources, is coming earlier and earlier each year. So last year it was 8th of August. So 9th of August, we are then using resources will not be regenerated again. So everything we can do in order to move to more circular business models will be important. We are just kind of touching the whole kind of digitalization potential. I think the solutions we have in place today will look very, very old 5 years down the road. So I think with 5G, you will see really implementation of Internet of Things and sensors and so on. And I think to be a company, really to work on transparency will be essential, because going forward, it will be required in order to build trust, to be very, very transparent on where you get your resources from, how you price them, which kind of material you use, in order to build trust towards customers and other stakeholders. We are also a member of World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and we have also, through that organization, looked at more kind of consumer trends. So I think we can all recognize this, Good Life 1.0, where we have a lot of things, where we love buying things. So the trends going forward is more from living bigger to living better. So it is more about, instead of from living large to being connected, driving solo, sharing journeys, slicing thick, knowing your food, pouring it on, spending it wisely, throwing away, holding up to it, getting it fast, slowing down. So we see, trends in the society that people are getting more aware of, what they eat, what they consume, and these are obviously, I think, important for all of us to understand developing our companies. In DNV-GL, we work with the Sustainable Development Goals. So I mentioned we have put sustainability into the vision. We then articulate very clearly which of the goals is important for us to address. We cannot work on all 17, so we pick some which is important for our current business and some for our further development. I mentioned Paul Polman and Unilever. I know you had a presentation of Unilever here yesterday. Fantastic company, show what real leadership is all about. We are working a lot with Unilever. We get a lot of inspiration from them and from Paul, and the way he lead and the way he inspire others to join him on a journey to solve some of the big issues, but also to do good business. So this is not either or, this is both. And I can assure you that people are piling up in order to join the team of Unilever. In US, Unilever is on the same rating as the tech companies in terms of being attractive to employees. So this, I think, is really, if you want to learn more, learn from Unilever. We are in transitions. Many of the sectors will be totally transformed going forward. Automotive is one of them. It was just a study out pointing that due to electrification, autonomy and sharing, maybe we will have 70% less cars in 2030 than we have today. We have had transitions before. This is the Easter parade in New York. 1900, only horses. 13 years later, everything was on cars. So this transition has been going on fast before. They can go fast again. We have 13 years from now to 2030. So that was just to give you some perspective on where we are heading. And I think to the business sector, these are all about opportunities, but it is also about collaboration. And I think many of the opportunities will also be in the intersection between the existing kind of businesses. So I think the group you represent here today is very interesting, but because I see you come from different sectors, and I think that is really how innovation will come forward. And I will also use the opportunity to give my sincere gratulation to Norner. I've been sitting in the board for some years, and I'm very proud to see how you develop, and also how you take a role to get your customers together and to develop a common agenda going forward. So thank you very much.